Last time we looked at Bootstrap, using Bootstrap as a framework for us to style our pages. So it had the advantage of it being responsive and being compatible with mobile devices and so on. So there's a lot of good things with it. And so we talked about that last time. There's another aspect of Bootstrap as well, and that is that it contains some JavaScript functionality that can implement some interactivity on a web page, much as like the kind of interactivity we could get via JavaScript. So we're going to take a look at that today, and we'll probably start jQuery today. I know this class covers, yes, forgot to turn on the projector. Yes, this class covers more topics than I think any other class that I have. But I think they're all worthwhile. All right. First thing that we're going to look at is the Bootstrap collapse. All right. And what that allows you to do is that gives you the behavior to make things collapse. And what do I mean by collapse? I mean something like this. You click the button, we can show or hide. And this is accomplished by giving a button. Again, it's just like with CSS. When you define a class for an item, you're adding, with CSS, you're adding the appearance. With the JavaScript component, you are adding the behavior. So in this case, we have this button, data BS toggle, collapse, target, # demo. # demo relates to this, and the class equals collapse. And by doing that, we can make that simple collapse. And it's nice too because, you know, not that it's critical, but it gives you a little bit of an animation effect. It sort of scrolls in as opposed to just boom appearing. So that's a nice thing that you can do behavior-wise with this. Some of the other things that you can do, progress bars. You can define a progress bar for something. All right. I guess this by itself isn't particularly good. You would have to manually update this progress bar. Let's see if there's anything else cool here. Card, that's another one that relates to appearance. I want to find other ones that relate to the behavior. Carousel, that's a good one. Carousel allows us to create a slideshow. And you can easily click through to get to the next image, back to the beginning. Little icons on the bottom show you what image, so you can click directly to a particular image, or you can scroll forward or backwards. And you can create it with just this code here. All right. Notice that we have buttons. Target is defined as # demo. And the slide number is defined as 0, 1, or 2. We then have this slideshow item, which consists of a div that contains other divs, each with a class of carousel item. And those divs contain the particular images. So you have the 3 images in this case. Finally, we have the navigation on the bottom this is the right and left navigation, my mistake. have that functionality. So again, it's something that, I have confidence that you all could code this. All right. I don't doubt that you could code this, but to code it in a manner that would be quick, that would be well tested and all that, why bother when there's a tool that can do it for you? All right. So therefore, consider Bootstrap for the styling and the behavior parts of pages if you have any. Let's see. This opens up a modal, which is like a message box that pops up on the page. Tooltip. If you hover over something, you get a little indication of what something means. That can be valuable. It'll pop over, which is like a tooltip, but it pops up. Show you that. Toast. The toast is just like, it's like a little message box, but it typically displays just for a couple seconds and it closes itself. That's the one thing I don't like about the modal dialogues or the message boxes that you create in JavaScript is I don't like, I'm lazy. I don't like to go and close message boxes when they appear. So a lot of times you might just pop up a message saying that, hey, data was saved, and you pop it up. It's not like something that the user has to study or anything. It's just a confirmation that, yeah, you saved the data and it worked correct. You can use the toast for that. So let's see. It's just like, it shows the toast by default. This one. So like this, when we click the button, it shows the toast message and it should close in a few seconds. There we go. It disappears without us having to do anything. That's sort of a fundamental rule of mine, is to avoid having message boxes. I typically would rather put things up on the screen than to have a message box. But toast is for those message boxes that just a little piece of information. It pops up and then it's done. Something like validation I wouldn't do in toast, because like if you said that there's 3 fields that have a problem, the user might be looking like, okay, 3 fields have a problem. Which ones are they? Phone number, zip code, and boom, it might disappear. Likewise with the message box. Let's say there were a lot of problems with the form and you display it in a message box. User has to close the message box to continue editing, and by that time it's possible that they could forget that. It's right on the page, hopefully right alongside the item that has the error. Then the user can see it and make whatever appropriate changes. But toast, again, would be good for like a confirmation of something. Like, yes, I sent that email. You press submit and boom, the email sent. Okay, or data was saved or data was deleted or whatever. Toast would be effective for that. Sure what scroll spy is. Scroll spy is automatically, oh, this is kind of cool. As we scroll through this, navigation updates the section that we're on. So we could scroll to here without this, but it wouldn't update the navigation. With the scroll spy, it actually updates the navigation. And you notice all these things, the code to do this is very minimal. Now, let's see what off canvas is, the last one. Up sidebar. It's kind of cool. And this shows you how to do that. For your next assignment or one-year assignments, go back and make sure I know which one. I believe it's for lab 6. You're going to add an accordion control. All right. So what's an accordion control? An accordion control is a control where, similar to a tab, only one thing can be open at a time. All right. And when you open one, you close another. So let me draw this. Hope I can do it justice with the drawing. If not, we can do a search and see if there's a better example. So you're to take the assignment that you did, assignment 1, and the page initially should show this, should show JavaScript heading. And this is the information about JavaScript. The other 2 areas should be closed or should be collapsed. So you have 2 other headers, heading, 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 JavaScript, PHP, and Ajax. Now, when you click PHP, JavaScript will collapse and the PHP will display in its position. And let's see if I have an example here. An accordion video that talks about that. But I also have accordion example, I believe. Yeah. So this is what I mean. So in your example, in your homework assignment, the first one it shows will be JavaScript. So the JavaScript header will show. Notice that it's a different color from the other ones, indicating that it's the active one. So when the page initially loads, JavaScript header will be highlighted and the section about JavaScript will display. The other 2 things, other 2 headers will be collapsed. As I click on the headers, I collapse what was open and I open the one that I clicked on and make it active. Is pretty much like tabs, except just oriented differently. There's only one thing open at a time, and the open one gets highlighted. And when you click a new one, you open this and close that. Now, again, this wouldn't be very hard to write in JavaScript, but it's nice that you don't have to worry about that. You can get this behavior just by assigning classes to it. And this shows you a walkthrough of how to do that by setting the classes. You have a class of accordion, and you have accordion items, accordion header, and accordion collapse associated with that. So this, I imagine, will be relatively easy to do. All right. So that's our survey of accordion, the accordion and Bootstrap behaviors. The other thing I want to look at is I want to look at jQuery. Oh, let me just point out, for this to work, go back to one of the other examples. For this to work, you need on the page both the CSS for Bootstrap and the JavaScript for Bootstrap. So you need both of those loaded. Again, I would put those in the head section. This viewport is also something that is valuable for mobile pages. So I would include that as well.
Sir?
Yes.
We don't need to make an external CSS sheet. We just use the one Bootstrap CSS on.
Well, you use the Bootstrap CSS, but the Bootstrap CSS is going to style those particular elements that you have. And yeah, you can just use you wouldn't really need to create one. But your page should be styled. In other words, have styling on all the elements. If you wanted to, you could create your own CSS for portions of the page. All right, like if you wanted it to look different than the default of Bootstrap, you could style it your own way with your own external file. It's important that these versions match. And again, it's good to use the minimized version of this. The minimized version removes all spaces, which makes it a nightmare to try to read the code in, but that's okay. The browser has your back and the browser can read the code for you. And it doesn't worry about having any spaces or not. Okay, we're going to cover something similar to Bootstrap, the JavaScript aspect of Bootstrap. jQuery doesn't handle the CSS part of Bootstrap, like what the CSS part of Bootstrap does. But jQuery handles the JavaScript. In fact, jQuery is one of the very first JavaScript libraries that people have used. Can you use Bootstrap and jQuery? Absolutely. jQuery is just a shorthand JavaScript. It takes code that we've written and sort of writes it in an easier, more straightforward way. So we'll see a few examples of this. By the way, I think I mentioned this last time. This lab you should pull up in a mobile emulator to make sure it looks good. Which, if you use Bootstrap, it probably will. This is how this page looks in a mobile emulator. Notice it goes from 3 columns to just a single column. All righty. So let's look at some examples of jQuery in the jQuery tutorial. All right, some declarations about jQuery. It is a JavaScript library. In other words, jQuery is written in JavaScript. jQuery can't do anything that JavaScript can't do. Did I say that right? jQuery can't do what JavaScript can do. Yes, that's correct. There was 2 negatives in that statement. I wasn't sure if I did a double negative or not. But it greatly simplifies that. And we'll show some examples of that. Here's a quick little example. If you think of how you would write this in JavaScript, you'll see that it's really nothing new. It's just a different, shorter syntax. For example, if we did something like this, we would say window document onload equals function, and then put get element by tag p, and then we would write a loop to loop through all the paragraph tags and attach to it the hide function when the paragraph was clicked. So yeah, would do an onload, would get element by tag, and then we would loop through the list of elements that we got through, and for each one of them, we would put a click method to hide it when the paragraph was clicked. In fact, I think we did this in the spoiler example. We did this or something very similar to this. Whereas this, notice there's no loop in it, because we have these operations that work regardless if it's a single element or if it's an array of elements. So for example, in this one, all of these paragraphs disappear when they're clicked. Simply by us saying, if it's a paragraph, set the click function to this.hide. We can click all of them, make them disappear. Can't get them back in this case, but we could write code to do that. Notice again, we don't have to remember, we don't have to do document, we don't have to do this dot style dot display equals none or something like that. We just give a simple command to hide. And this is a selector. This will take the place of a lot of our functions like get element by ID, get element by tag, get element by query selector. Those are three things that we had talked about. I could make this work on just one if I wanted to, simply by putting in, like if I want to only make this one selectable, I could, or hideable, I could give this an ID of hide. Then I could change the selector to say and these don't go away anymore. That one does. So this is one of your workhorses in this language, because this takes the place of get element by ID, get element by tag name, get elements by query selector. I could also do this. Let's say I want to make the first one and the third one hideable. So now the first one and the third one are hideable. Oh, not yet. What did I put in there? I put in there, just like I do with CSS, the selector. The selector can be a tag name, just like in CSS. It can be an ID. IDs start with a pound sign. I could start with a class. In this case, this starts with a period. So I click run, and now the second one is not hideable because I didn't assign it that class. Third one, hideable. Thanks. Third one and the first one are hideable, but the second one isn't. So this allows us to select things. And notice we don't have to write any loops through this. We don't have to loop through and say, well, give me the first one, set that to hidden, give me the second one, set that to hidden. This selector like automatically creates a loop for you. But again, notice we need the library in here. This is a common theme. When you're using these libraries, you need to include either CSS or JavaScript for it. In this case, we're using the jQuery JavaScript, so we will do this. You can, if you want to, go and download this and make it a local file on your server if you wanted to. Or you can just refer to it online like this. I would normally do this. I wouldn't normally download it. You could theoretically make some changes and add behavior to jQuery and change behavior. That's dangerous because if there's an update to jQuery, you would have to redo those updates to the new version, or you'd lose them. All right, let's look at some other things. Everything starts with the $, selector, and action. And we saw before the selector can be a HTML tag, it can be a class, or it can be a test. We could even make it so that the selector is more complex. Like we could do this. What I want to do is I want to be able to hide only the paragraphs that are in the section. In which case I would put in the exact same selector that I would for CSS. If I wanted to style that differently in CSS, what would I do? Well, I'd say section P. You could do the same thing here. These two don't go away, and this one does. So this is nothing new. This is the same stuff that you use with CSS, and the same rules apply using classes, using a combination of classes and tags, using combination of IDs and classes and tags, anything you want to. Any selector that you could use in CSS, you can also use here. And I think that talks more about it. All right, here's some effects that you can do. There's a hide or show. You can hide it or show it. Hide, show. Yes.
If you had a paragraph outside of the one, you have to get more specific then?
In this case or the previous example?
In this case here.
So if I had a paragraph, I'd get more specific. So if I had, let's put another paragraph here. So if we just did that and ran this, if we click hide, it's hiding all of them. But if we wanted to make it to only hide the one, what we could do is say, for example, probably the best way to do it would be to give a class. We could use an ID, but classes are better because you could, in this case, you could imagine having a couple of paragraphs that you want to hide. Yes.
It's the best to use a class to define some changes, or will you use an ID? It's the best to use.
Generally, you're going to be using classes because IDs you absolutely have to know for sure there's only one of them. And like in a case like this, right now, there's only one other paragraph, right? There's only one that we want to hide, one that we don't want to hide. But I could easily imagine this change where we would have 3 or 4 paragraphs and maybe one of them we want to hide and 3 or 2 of them we want to hide and 2 of them we don't hide. So if there's any shadow of a doubt if it's going to be unique or not, use a class. If you're absolutely sure that this is unique, yep, that's the only one that's going to be on the page ever for all times, then you can use an ID. So in this case, what I would do is I would change then this selector to say .hide. So what does that mean? That means that any paragraph that has a class of hide, make it hideable. So this one, oh, this one won't disappear. This one does appear. So again, it's just like CSS. You hone in on the thing that you want to do something to using those selectors and following the same rules that you used before. You can have a nice little fade in effect. There's no show, but we can change the time. And the time is in milliseconds. So 1,000 would be 1 second. We could make it take 10 seconds. I always like pushing things to the extreme and just watching how goofy it looks. We could run this and hide it. Oh, I'm going away. Boom, it closes. Same thing, we have a fading. We could fade out or fade in. When I click on the button, we're going to fade these divs in at different rates. Div 1's going to fade in the fastest. Div 2 is going to fade in the second fastest, I'm thinking. And Div 3 is going to fade in the slowest. I can barely tell the difference between 1 and 2. But you definitely could see that number 3 was different. Slide that down. Ooh, this is fun. Okay, so look what we're going to do. We have a button to start the animation. And we're going to set that when we click the button, we're going to move these divs, and we're going to move all the divs. Now, there's only one div in this case, but there was more. We're going to animate, and what are we going to animate? We're going to animate this style attribute. So we're going to animate pushing it 250 pixels to the left, from the left. Right, pushing it 250 pixels from the left. So if we click this, it slides across the screen. Now, I believe you can do colors that way too, because right now the color is this. Let's animate the color to black. Can't do colors. See if I use the hex code. I stand corrected. You cannot use. Wait a minute, it's giving me red, so something's wrong. I guess we can't do that. We can do the height though. Width. Sure the syntax was correct. Okay. This is bugging me now. Maybe there are limits to what you can change, but that doesn't make sense to me. Save this as a separate file so we can debug.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's because you have a semicolon after the height, where you should maybe put a comma instead.
A colon after height and a semicolon.
Maybe that could help.
I'm not sure. Let's see if we're getting an error. Invalid or unexpected token. HTML line 8. Maybe we can't do two like that. Oh, kind of quotes around the stuff. Left colon. There we go. Now let's see if we can do two things. Maybe we can't do two things. Semicolon, so it doesn't like the semicolon. It's like the width. Oh, this is not the most important thing in the world, but it has become it for me. jQuery animate multiple properties. Comma between them. I guess not. I don't know. Apparently you can do it, but I'm not doing it right. You get the idea here. All these things we could do in JavaScript if we wanted to, but the shorthand of the selectors and the shorthand of the properties sort of make it easier for us. We'll talk more about jQuery next time. Are there any questions? All right, we'll either see you in lab or we will see you next week. Next week is our last week before spring break. I know, I'm sad too. No, I'm just kidding. We will, so we'll see you either in lab or next week.